Hi class, in example 2 we're going to be writing ratios. Now let me just go over the basic definition of a ratio, which is technically just a fraction. Except that for ratios we're typically are comparing values, and there's two ways to rewrite it. So technically a fraction in lowest terms, and then if you're writing it as a ratio, they may want you to use the two dots, which basically indicate that this is some sort of a division that has been simplified. And the main idea, as I mentioned earlier, is to compare values. So for example, let's take a look at the first problem here. Okay. And in this case, they want us to write this these two quantities as a ratio. And I'm going to start with the 8 feet over the 16 feet. So the part 2, it's actually your denominator. So it's A to B. And then they do want us to rewrite it in simplest form. So the first part that actually cancels is the feet. So in this case, I'm just going to rewrite it as 8 over the values of 16. And then we need to reduce it. So this is 8 times 1 and then 8 times 2. Your 8s cancel. And you end up with a fraction of 1/2. Now, for most of the problems that we've done in the past, this was a sufficient answer since the fraction reduced to 1/2. But in this case, this represents some sort of a ratio or units that we may need to compare. So the proper answer is going to be 1 to 2. That's pretty much it. So if they mention a ratio, that's the proper answer after you reduce the fractions. And then in this situation, cancel the units. That's it for A. Let's take a look at B. Now, B doesn't have units. So in this case, this is just going to be 6 over the values of 18. That's a 6 to 18. And this is 6 times 1, and this is 6 times 3. And for this one, we can cancel the 6's. And our fraction in lowest terms is actually 1/3. Since they do mention a ratio, this will be 1 to 3. That's pretty much it. A couple of word problems are going to actually have comparisons, and it'll be easier to analyze in that form. So for problem A and B, we're just reducing the fractions and then using the proper notation for ratios. Let's move on to C. Now, C, they actually want us to rewrite it as a unit rate. And let me go up so we can take a look at the definition. And the basic idea on the unit rate, it's a fraction. And, well, in this case, your denominator, we have to rewrite it as a 1 if it's not already given in that form. So that's pretty much it. This is what we're going to be using to compare quantities. Now, for this given problem, it just wants us to write it as a unit rate. And in this case, this is given as an exact quantity, so there's no need to actually do any calculations. So the unit rate, it's going to be equal to technically 5280 feet per 1 mile. I'm just emphasizing that there's a 1 in the denominator. So that's actually it for C. If we don't have a 1 there, we have to rewrite it as a 1, which typically causes the fraction to be modified by a multiplication of a certain quantity. Let's take a look at D, and they also want a unit rate. And in this case, this will be 60 seconds and then 1 minute. And that's it for D. I'll put the rest of the problems on a different video, but that's pretty much it for ratios and the unit rate of quantities.